Hey there, I'm Bill DeVille, and we're here with Royel Otis, who have a brand new album called Pratts Pain. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm Roy.
I'm Otis.
Nice to meet you
Nice
both.
to meet you, Bill.
You too.
Yeah. How are you? How's the American tour going so far?
Pretty good. It's just started.
Yeah.
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 I saw a bunch of sold-out dates coming up. That's got to be
Yeah.
exciting for you.
Yeah, it's cool. It's weird.
Yeah.
Definitely weird. First tour in America, so
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the first thing you saw when you got to the States that let you know you weren't in Australia anymore?
Good question.
Roy drinking a Budweiser.
Yeah, me drinking Budweiser instead of VB.
There you go. There you go. So what do you think? You're excited about the American tour, and then I see that you're going to be doing all the festivals and stuff this summertime. Have you
Yeah.
done that before?
We haven't
No.
done anything in the States
No,
yet.
we did like a radio show not too long ago, like 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was
South
kinda
by
it.
Southwest or something?
No, it was just a couple of radio shows. Like it was like a K-rock thing in LA, and then like
Mm-hmm.
something else upstate New York. But this is our first like proper.
Actual tour, so everything's exciting.
Yeah.
It's all been so fun.
And you're doing some of the big festivals in Europe, I see, this summertime.
Yeah.
Too,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done that before?
We've done a couple of
yeah.
festivals in Europe before.
Mm-hmm.
We've toured Europe and UK like twice.
Yeah. So I see you're from Sydney, Australia. Tell us your story. How did you guys meet, and how did the Royel Otis come about? Well, we see it's your names, obviously,
Yeah.
so that's where the name came from. But
Yeah.
how did the band come together?
I grew up on the Central Coast, which is like an hour and a half north of Sydney. And my dad was friends with his uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there'd been like some like Christmas events and stuff that I think we were in the same room but didn't really know each other. Just kids and such. And then we started talking at a bar I worked at about music and stuff. And I think it just kind of naturally progressed from there.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
That's we probably like first met at like a bar, and then
Yeah,
through,
yeah.
And when the band came together in what, like 2019? Is that when you officially started?
Yeah, I think so. Well, that's when we officially started talking about and just doing demos together and stuff.
And then you roll into 2020, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
Did that put a total stop to you guys, or did you just keep writing songs and making music? And
kept doing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
kept doing it. It's probably good because then it means we didn't rush anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what was when you tell us about the Pratts Pain album? It's your debut record.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you went to London to. How did you end up in London to record? Even though you're from Australia.
Good question. Before we recorded it, we met some producers over in the UK, and Dan Carey was one of them, and we really liked him. So we were like, yeah, let's do an album with him. And so we did it at his house studio in Streatham, South London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we named the album after the pub that was just down the road.
Yeah.
Called Pratts Pain.
I see you shot some video there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Made me
was fun.
thirsty for a cold one when I
Oh,
saw the
man.
video for that tune. Now
sweet.
the album has been a big hit on the Current, including the song "Murder on the Dance Floor," which is a cover.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that song to cover?
We were trying to think of songs like we wanted to do a Kylie Minogue song or like a Jamiroquai song or something like around that. And one of our managers said, you should do Murder on the Dance Floor. And this was like in July last year. And then Saltburn came out, and had Barry dancing around with his everything out. And so they were like, then we were like, oh, it'd be a good idea to do this, but we only had an hour to put it together. So we just made it like as raw as possible, but still paying enough homage to the song,
It's a great tune. And one thing I notice about many of your songs is that they're very danceable, yet, there's still guitars in it and stuff. That's kind of that's not all dance music is made with, it's driven by guitars, and that's a cool thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about it.
Yeah. And that
That's cool.
works for you really well.
Perfect.
Where do you think guitars fit in? I mean, so much music nowadays is, electric guitars aren't even part of it anymore.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like any good song, well, can start on a guitar. And I even like music these days, I'm sure a lot of the ideas they're coming up with maybe would start on guitars and then they just move it to a more like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know.
We usually start with drum beats, so maybe that's where.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Or
where the
guitars.
danceability
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
from.
yeah, I think so.
It all starts with the drums, as they often say.
Yeah.
You know, back in the engine room, that
That's
with
it.
with the bass. And I see you've done another cover of the Irish band, the Cranberries' "Linger."
Yeah.
What inspired you to cover that song? It's such a classic.
Such a good song. We had to do a session for Sirius, and I think it was the day before or something. And was it the day before? I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was or a few days before. And we're just like, what do we do? And we're going through ideas again, and then we've always like loved that song. We were even thinking about doing it for the Triple J like a version, but we never like rehearsed it or anything. And then we just were like, we'll give it a crack.
Yeah.
It's a great song.
Such a good song.
Yeah.
Like, didn't expect for it to do as well as what it has, but the inspiration was just kind of being forced to do another cover
Yeah.
because we couldn't do Metal on the Dance Floor for them.
Yeah. A friend of mine did some videos with the Cranberries and said what a
No way.
sweetheart that the late Dolores O'Riordan
Dolores,
was.
yeah.
She was a real sweetheart of a person.
It's such a sad story.
Yeah, it was a very sad story. Also on your album, you know, the first single that we played was the song "Fried Rice."
Oh yeah.
Such a cool song.
Yeah.
That's a
What was the
funny one.
inspiration? I mean, you got a bowl of rice in front of you, and it's like, let's come up with the song. How did that work?
Not quite. We were doing a session with another producer just to see how that felt working with him, Rob Brinkman. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we went out for lunch and had some wines, and then it was a really nice wine bar actually. And we got back in the studio and we're just laughing, playing around, and just having fun. And it just came out all naturally, like 2 hours. So it's like, and we were just throwing in ideas
Stupid
about
lyrics.
stupid, like, they all mean something, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, we were just having fun.
Well, it's a strong debut. Congratulations on the new album. What's the music scene like in Australia now?
Not as good as everywhere else.
Yeah?
Well, it's just,
There are good bands coming out of Australia. I think it's actually getting a lot better.
it's getting better.
Yeah.
But it was, for a while there, it was just like,
Bit of maybe a double point.
yeah, unless it was like, which there's really good punk bands in Australia, especially in Melbourne, and then really good like psych bands coming out of Perth.
Mm-hmm.
Sydney has like a bit of both, but it was, I guess, it was just DJs, and that no one was going to see bands that they had never heard of.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, so you'd go to a show and it would just be like, just their mates there, pretty much. Whereas I find like here and in Europe, a lot more people tend to just go out just to see live music and not even know who it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's cool,
Mm.
but it's getting better.
There's a big like EDM scene in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's some good bands coming out. Yeah.
We hear a lot here in the States about Triple J in Australia.
Yeah.
What kind of a station is that?
They drive the
Australian
whole
music.
music scene.
Yeah.
The whole thing?
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Them and like there's like FBI as well and like a lot of other ones, but I feel like Triple J are kind of like the main.
They're the main ones.
Yeah.
They tell everyone.
They play,
who
like
is
play
cool.
up and coming
Yeah.
bands.
Yeah. It sounds like it's good for music in general.
Yeah, yeah. They give high school bands a shot and everything.
Mm.
It's really good.
I saw that you guys went to your first baseball game yesterday in Kansas City, which
That's
is kind
it.
of
Kansas
fun. As your
City.
Royal Otis, and it's the Kansas
The
City
Royals.
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 yeah.
Yeah.
The Royals.
It was
Yeah,
a good
got some-
game
Got some merch, which is sick.
because it was cold. It was
Looking
actually
good.
really cold.
I still remember the first time I went to see a Kansas City Royals game. It was back in the 70s, and their center fielder was named Amos
Yeah.
Otis.
Amos.
Amos.
Yeah.
A-M-O-S. And he was a great center fielder.
Yeah,
they
there you go.
They were a good team back in the day. So that's kind of cool. You got to see the,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Royals.
We
Couple
didn't know how it worked. I didn't know the rules at the start, but figured it out by the end. At the
It'd,
start, I was
it'd
a
be
bit-
like me watching a rugby game.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
yeah.
It was, they hit a couple of home runs though, which
Yeah.
is fun. Fireworks, everything.
Yeah.
It's
Everyone loses
really
it.
exciting, wasn't it? Yeah.
And they got the waterworks out
Yeah,
in the
the
outfield.
waterworks.
And, yeah, it's
That's
kind of
screaming.
cool. I saw a promo shot of you, and one of you, I think it was you, were wearing a Sonic Youth Dirty T-shirt.
Yeah, yeah.
I used to have that T-shirt.
Man, I wish it was
Are
like
you a Sonic Youth
one of
fan?
the, yeah, well, Lee Ronaldo is like one of the best guitarists, I think.
Oh, he's
just
an
like-
awesome guitar player.
Yeah, the only thing I've not liked of Sonic Youth is that Nardwuar interview they did with him, and they like really bully him. It's
Yeah.
just like, ouch, that hurts. They seem mean. But no, yeah, that shirt, I wish it was like, I was trying to find like an original one of those for a long time, but it's just a cheap copy.
Yeah, yeah. Who are some of your other musical idols?
Sonic Youth is sick. Like,
Yeah.
King Cruel. I really like King Cruel.
Pixies.
Oh, Pixies, yeah.
Yeah.
Huge fan of Pixies. That's awesome.
Yeah. Death Grips. I love Death Grips, but I wouldn't say it's like an inspiration. I mean, the way they phrase their vocals, I think, is rad.
Modern Lovers.
Ah, the Modern Lovers.
Yeah.
Jonathan Richman.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool as
Well,
hell.
yeah. So nice chatting with you guys.
Thank you so much for having us, Bill.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you here at The Current.
Thank you.
It is Royel Otis, and the brand new album is called Pratts Pain, and we're here with Otis Pavlovic. Did I say your name right?
Yeah.
Yes, and Royal Medell.
Boom.
Sweet as.
Congratulations on the fine new album.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to meet you, and take care of yourselves.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
is all ours, man.
Good man.
Cheers.
Thanks.
The Current is public media made possible thanks to member support.